Hi, I'm Lisa Genza, and we're here at Freedom Kitchen. And this is another episode in the Kids in the Kitchen series, brought to you in collaboration with Oxford Community TV and the 4-County Community Foundation. And today we're going to be talking about raw food, and what better for your kids to make than a no-bake dessert. So we're going to be making 2 different desserts today. I'm going to show you how to make a shortbread crust that can be used a number of different ways. And so I like to teach things in steps so that you can take that step and duplicate it for other recipes. So we're going to start today with a shortbread crust or a shortbread recipe made from walnuts and coconut. And then we'll be able to use that to make a pineapple upside down cake and apple stacks. And both of these are no-bake desserts. And what that means is raw food has a lot of health benefits, but it also is a lot simpler because we don't have to use our stove or our oven. So again, when we're getting kids started in the kitchen, it's a lot easier to start with no-bake recipes. So that's what we're going to be making today. Now I have all of my ingredients measured out, and this is called mise en place. So this means to make sure that we have all of our ingredients and that we have enough of the ingredients we need before we get started. This allows us to be more organized. And I don't know about you, but many times I've started a recipe and realized I didn't have something at home. So this is a way to ensure that you have everything you need before you get started. And if we're cooking with kids in the kitchen, this really helps to reduce any confusion or any clutter, to have everything measured out first. So the tools that we're going to use today are going to be a food processor and a blender. And in our food processor, we're going to make our crust. Our crust consists of walnuts, coconut, dates. Now I took the liberty to cut the pit out of most of the dates, but I left a few to demonstrate. Dates are found in the refrigerator section or sometimes in the nut section of the grocery store. And unless they say pitted, they have a pit in them. So you will want to cut your pit out. And then for this recipe today, I am going to substitute a couple of the dates with a little bit of the pineapple juice from my pineapples. That will still be sweet, sticky, and it will help keep my crust together. I'll put my dates in there, and I'm going to add some salt. And we're going to make our crust. So we still want this to be crumbly. We don't want our food processor to be on too long and make this into a paste. We want this to be crumbly like a crust. So I'm just checking the consistency. Okay, you can see the crust here. We'll take out our S-blade. Now, when cooking with kids in the kitchen, we always have to teach them that this is like a knife, not to touch the blade of the food processor. So we have this nice, sticky, crumbly crust that we'll be able to press into our pan. So what I'm going to do is do my pineapple upside down cake. And I put this on parchment paper, and I made little handles so that I'll be able to pull this out easily. Get my last 2 pineapple out of there. Now you'll see that I used simple organic no sugar added. We do not need any additional sugar, nor do we want any of the genetically modified sweeteners or sugars in our fruit. Now I'm going to use half of this crust because we're going to use the other half for a second dessert. So I'm going to place this in my pan over my pineapple. Now you could do the maraschino cherries as well in your pineapple upside down cake, but then make sure that you get the ones that don't have any high fructose corn syrup added. So I'm going to spread out my crust over my pineapple. And then I'll refrigerate this. So you see this recipe doesn't quite fill a 9 by 13. This would have been better in an 8 by 8 or a 9 by 9, which I didn't have available here at the kitchen. So we just used a 9 by 13. But I'm not going to use the whole pan. Okay, I've pressed my crust over my pineapple. And then I'm going to refrigerate this. And while we refrigerate this, we'll go ahead and make the caramel sauce that's going to go on top. Okay, and when we come back, we're going to make that caramel sauce.
Just think, what if we didn't have local TV and radio? Where would I go for local sports, local politics, a mayor, city council, stuff that affects me every day? How about health? Who's covering things that endanger my family? I need to know now, as it happens, from sources I trust, people in my community. No agenda, no bias like you find on cable and social media, just facts. For news I can trust, I stay local. Support your local station. Text TV to 52886 today.
Okay, we're back. Our pineapple upside down cake is in the refrigerator chilling, and we're going to make a caramel sauce. Now, caramel can be made a number of different ways. I have been dairy free now for more than a decade, and I can tell you at first I was very sad when I had to get rid of dairy and caramel. And there are a lot of people who are lactose intolerant or probably shouldn't have dairy. But don't fret, because we can make caramel out of a number of different things. So today we're going to make caramel out of coconut nectar. Of course, I have the bottle here because this is one of those things that most people have not heard about. But coconut syrup or coconut nectar is a low glycemic index sweetener. So considering that we have an epidemic of type 2 diabetes and we're eating just far too much sugar in our culture, coconut sugar or coconut nectar would be a better choice. First of all, coconut trees have not been genetically modified. And second, they are not sprayed with pesticides or herbicides. So we're not getting any glyphosate or pesticides when we eat coconut nectar. Now the bonus is that it's a low glycemic index, meaning it doesn't spike our blood sugar. So when you first start using coconut nectar, you may find it's not very sweet, or you feel it's not very sweet, because our brain is actually used to sugar spikes. It's really like a high, like a drug. And so when we take that drug away and we replace it with something that doesn't give us as great of a high, it might not feel as sweet to you. That could be because you're looking for a sugar high. So just be aware of that. When I coach people, I don't often take them directly from traditional cane sugar to coconut nectar. We typically start with maple syrup or honey, and then we move to coconut nectar. So on the spectrum of being the healthiest, all natural sweeteners still have benefit to them, with coconut nectar probably being the healthiest or the best because of the low glycemic index and no pesticides. So we're going to make caramel today in the blender. This is very simple to do. You could do this, you might be able to do it in your food processor as well. But we're going to take a little bit of almond butter. That's going to give it the thickness. We're going to take coconut nectar, and we're going to add coconut oil. Now, if you know anything about coconut oil is liquid above room temperature. And at room temperature, it will become hardened. So in the refrigerator, this will become hardened. So this will thicken up at room temperature or colder. It will be very thin if it's warmed up above room temperature. Okay, so very simply here, we just have our 3 ingredients. Now you can make caramel out of cashew butter, tahini, which is sesame seed paste. You can use maple syrup. You can use coconut oil. There's a number of different ways that you can make caramel. And throughout my classes, I always introduce a new way to make it. So today we're using almond butter and coconut nectar. I also make it with cashew butter and maple syrup. I'll make it with tahini and honey. So this would be a great thing for you to experiment at home, is how to make caramel that you and your family love. Okay, so now we're just going to put the blender on for a minute. Okay, now here's my caramel. I am going to put it back in here in this measuring cup. Now, if I wanted to thicken this, I would put it in the refrigerator. I may want to leave it thinner because we're going to drizzle it over our desserts. Okay, so then the second thing that we're going to do with our crust today and our caramel is we're going to make apple stacks. Now, I have a fancy cutter here. This is my manual food processor. There's a number of different ways you can cut your apples. If you have a spiralizer, you could make them very pretty and cut spirals with your apples. Now, for those of you that don't know, I've been teaching classes since 2008. I had my own health crisis and had to change my diet significantly. And I became an expert in detoxification methods. And lo and behold, the number one way to detoxify your body is through nutrition. So I really had no choice but to change my diet and to help other people do the same thing. So everything I teach is Whole30, or it's whole foods. So this is a whole food. I also teach paleo, so I teach a lot of grain-free, dairy-free desserts or treats cooking. And this is raw food. So I did a couple years eating predominantly raw and teaching a lot of raw food classes, learning how to make raw nachos and raw lasagna. Some of those classes or lessons are available in my kids program. Now I'm going to take, here, let's see if this is a good spot. I'm going to take some of my crust and I'm going to press it onto my plate. Now you could do these in muffin tins where you could press your crust and then you could build your apple stacks. You can also do raw cupcakes. So when we come back, we'll put both of these desserts together.
Do you love local sports? Whether it's Oxford High School or Parks and Rec, you can buy copies of each game. To purchase your copy, call us at 248-628-9658 or give us an email at manager@occtv.org or talk to us at the next game. Hopefully we'll see you there.
All right, so we're back. I have taken the liberty to get our pineapple upside down cake out of the refrigerator. We just pressed the crust for our apple stacks. Now what I'm going to do, you can see in a very short period of time our apples may start to turn brown, so we're just going to squeeze a little bit of lemon juice on our apples. I'm going to toss this in. And then I'm going to add a little bit of cinnamon and agave nectar. Now you could use honey, maple syrup, agave nectar. It's just a natural sweetener. And all that, it's just a tablespoon. This is just going to bring out some of the sweetness in the apples. We're going to add that cinnamon. Now cinnamon is fantastic for regulating blood sugar. So again, I often talk about the type 2 diabetes epidemic because we have 84 million Americans who are now pre-diabetic, and pre-diabetes is a precursor for cancer. So we want to make sure that we're watching that blood sugar. Believe it or not, you can have your cake and eat it too, but we have to cut out the refined sugars. Refined sugars like cane and beet sugar, that white processed table sugar. We can replace that with a lower glycemic index like maple syrup or honey or agave, or the lowest glycemic index, which is coconut nectar. And when we do that, we're also getting the benefit of those sweeteners. So maple syrup has naturally occurring minerals that come from the trees, and honey has naturally occurring bacteria that comes from the bees. And coconut nectar has naturally occurring minerals as well. So agave actually comes from a plant in the desert, and while it's highly contested over whether or not it's a healthy sweetener, it is a monosaccharide, and for many people they can handle agave more so than other sweeteners. So these are all lessons that I teach in my programs. Okay, so now I have my apples. I've added a little bit of lemon juice to keep them from getting brown. I've added a little bit of agave and some cinnamon, and I'm going to make an apple stack here. Now with a spiralizer, this is very pretty. You can spiralize this. And then I'm going to take my caramel. And my caramel, remember, is very liquefied because it's above room temperature right now. Once I put this in the refrigerator, it will get thicker. But I'm just going to drizzle my caramel over my pineapple upside down cake. And then I'm going to add some caramel here to my apple stacks. So these are two very easy no-bake desserts. Let me recap that when we're cooking with the kids in the kitchen, it's a lot easier to make no-bake desserts or food. So again, I teach the kids in my programs how to make raw or uncooked nachos, like a no-bake, no-cook nachos. We can make no-bake lasagna. We can make no-bake desserts. So many of us are familiar with no-bake cookies. There's a lot of varieties of no-bake cookies, which we'll make in another episode. We'll make some oatmeal raisin no-bake cookies. So then we're not using at least the stove or the oven. This also helps to save money and keep our house cooler in the summer. So a lot of people will enjoy no-bake or raw foods in the summer. The benefit to always having some raw foods or uncooked foods is that you have more nutrients available to your body. So over 115 degrees, when we cook something, we start to kill the nutrients. So we want to make sure that we are not killing all of the vitamins and the minerals from all of these nuts, plants, and seeds, because all of those are beneficial to our body and to our health. So consider this dessert, but it's also health food. So we're feeding our body and our mind and our soul. So until next time, thanks so much. Bye-bye.